Listen to Blocking It Up with Elon James White, LJ Williams, and Aaron Rand Freeman at 1:30 p.m. Eastern at blockingitup.com.
The whole weekend, just looking at the number, I mean, besides obviously Aaron being close to us and his family member passing, just to see how many people were affected by gun violence in one weekend. I think at one point in 24 hours, it was like 35 people
42.
or 42 people. And, you know, you see on the news and everything now, everybody wants to respond to gun violence in, you know, urban centers. So when these things happen and when there's an uptick in deaths, then everybody wants to jump on board. You know, what we got to do something about it. And to his credit, and to his to opposite of his party, the mayor of the city has been trying to work on this issue for years. He has tried to organize the mayors in other urban cities around this problem, much to the opposition of other members of his party. Who are all pro-gun rights. Everybody, you know, should have a gun. And, you know, there's a different reality when you're in an urban center and the guns are illegal, right? But then there's also the issue that there are plenty of organizations who work every day on reducing gun violence in our neighborhoods. And so while everyone is sort of talking about and figuring out what to do, and we need to create an organization or a program to do this, there are already programs and organizations that exist that are doing great work to try to reduce it. Because let's be honest, you know, the gun violence and stuff that's going on, you know, besides, you know, deaths by cops and things like that, which don't happen every day. It's us. You know, with illegal, it's people in our own neighborhoods with illegal guns that are killing innocent people.
Yep. You know, that's what I'm saying. The only logistical thing you can do is actually the community has turned in on itself. There's nothing you can do outwardly at all to fix the problem.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we have, you know, that is controlling ourselves. No, because I think of it this way. It's not, and my brother says this all the time. It's not like the KKK is going around handing out guns to people and saying, "Hey, go shoot yourself."
Absolutely, that is true. But at the same time, you have to take into consideration the situations that have led to this particular situation. Like it's not like all of a sudden there was a bunch of completely awesome Negroes living the American dream, and then they all decided one day to get up and start shooting at each other. That's not exactly what happened.
Listen, and I know we're not saying that, you know, we know that there's a lot of things that lead up to Pookie having a gun.
Right. And I feel like, but you have to, at the same time, for every moment where you say people need to take responsibility within their own neighborhood, which I absolutely agree, you cannot ignore why the neighborhood got to that point where now we have to go talk to Pookie.
True.
And that's what I mean.
True. So we have a guest that's going to join us in this discussion, which I'm really excited about, while Elon gets it together. Tamika Mallory.
This is Tamika.
Hey, Tamika. This is L-Joy. How are you? You're live with Blacking It Up.
L-Joy.
You're here with myself and Elon and Aaron and our whole chat room and listenership.
Well, listen, thank you so much for calling me and having me on.
No problem. So Tamika Mallory is actually the executive director of National Action Network. And those familiar, I have talked about her a number of times. She is the executive director of N.A.N, which is actually the organization founded by Reverend Sharpton. And so I mentioned this before, Reverend Sharpton, you know, civil rights icon, and yet his organization is ran by a young woman of color. And so shout out and kudos to Tamika. And I tweeted out her Twitter handle. Make sure to follow her. But she is representative of an organization that does work all across the country on gun violence. And as we're talking about, Tamika, what we just came from a weekend, which now they're saying it's nearly 100 people that were shot or killed by guns in New York City. You know, what you work on this year round, right? So what are some of the things we're talking about, some of the effects? What are some of the things that organizations like yours are doing year round to address this problem?
Well, there's a lot of things that people have been doing. There are a lot of grassroots organizations that have been working on the issue of gun violence, whether there are high rates of shootings over a weekend or not. These people are on the ground day in and day out. And one of the main issues for some of these grassroots organizations is that there has been no resources for their organizations to be able to effectively do what they do. And a lot of that means that, people are able to volunteer hours to go out into the community and work with young people, to walk young people home from school. As schools just opening today and tomorrow in New York City, there are a lot of groups that will begin to kick up their activity around schools to see to it that kids are, first of all, that they have someone that they can turn to outside of their household to talk about other folks that they know that may have a gun. If they know a child brought a gun to school or has one in their home, these organizations are there to sort of get that intelligence and help to either take it to the authorities, take it to parents, or whatever. So a lot of these groups need resources. They need to be able to hire people to bring them on. They need phones. They need, food, different things to bring people in. So that's been one issue that we've worked on, and we were able to get the SNUG campaign done in New York State, where the state senators and others worked very closely, and they got resources that went down to very small groups, very small grassroots organizations like Erica Ford out in Queens, who has the Life Camp Foundation and really does work with young people. A.T. Mitchell, a brother in Brooklyn, with a group called Man Up, that is one of the groups that I was speaking about, that's out there at night in the middle of the projects and places where violence is very high, working with those people and trying to turn either people who are entering gangs or people who are considering going into a gang, turning them around and getting some that are in out. And so they did get resources through a program called Ceasefire and the SNUG campaign through New York State's government. And that program has currently been defunded by the governor of New York State. And, when you talk about what people can do, one of the things that I have been saying, the shootings happened this weekend, over Labor Day weekend, and we have waited now 2 days to hear from the governor of New York State about this issue of gun violence, and he has said absolutely nothing. He has been silent. So when you talk about what people can do, people can start calling the governor's office today and say, what is the governor's position on gun violence in New York State?
Oh. It's an action item.
What is he doing about it? What's his plan? We haven't heard anything. And I called around over the last few days and talked to other civil rights groups and other grassroots leaders and asked them, have you heard from Governor Cuomo's office? Has there been an attempt to set up a meeting? Has he brought any plans to use, as he did with property tax caps in New York State? He needs to do the same thing and have the same integrity with gun violence. And the same with same-sex marriage. As you know, Eljoy, he took same-sex marriage and really fought against the bigotry around that issue, which we supported 100%, and he was able to get the same-sex marriage law passed. Why is he not taking the same time, putting his reputation on the line, the same with life or death, and particularly of our young people in this state?
That's a good thing. And I think definitely for us to be able to call and get a response. I mean, you mentioned something important that it's, we were talking about sort of what do we do? I think it's important to note that having sort of large organizations or large legislative plans in this instance may not be the correct way to address the violence in our community, and that maybe we should be supporting these organizations that are working directly with young people and working directly in our neighborhoods, because there is that fear and that distrust from government, right? So people fear and they have a distrust of the cops and things like that. But working with somebody that they know, that they see every day in the community gives a different response, right?
Well, I agree. I think that you're absolutely right. People can volunteer time. They can volunteer resources. I'm sure a lot of these grassroots organizations, if you call them up right now, they'll tell you that they need hands. They need people to be there to really make the program effective. They also need folks to give $5, $10, just like we do to churches. And some of the churches we support are not even working on this issue. They're not even on the ground as it relates to the lives of our young people. So, giving a few dollars to help an Erica Ford or an Aisha Sekou in Harlem or a Harlem Mother Save group that works with mothers who have lost their children, that would be very helpful when you talk about real tangible things that you can do. At the same time, I know that we have been very reluctant to work with the government, particularly when you start talking about police presence, because as you can see, just over the West Indian Day Parade, Kirsten John Foy and City Councilman Jamani Williams, who work very closely with National Action Network. Kirsten Foy left National Action Network to become the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Public Advocate of New York City, Bill de Blasio. Before that, he was with us working on police brutality cases, and they were brutalized at the West Indian Day Parade by the police. It's on video. It's all over the TV. And they're dealing with the fact that, the officers cared nothing about who they are, the fact that they are servants of the government, and they treated them as if they were just general folks, walking down the street, which is happening to young Black and Latino males and females all over the city. And there's some serious issues as it relates to community and police relations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is a responsibility. The burden is on a lot of people, including the federal government, to look at ways to deal with 100 shootings in one city over one weekend. And we've got to really look at that. I'm looking at a program now called Project Exile, where in Virginia, particularly in Richmond, Virginia, the federal government decided to intervene, and whenever a person is found with an illegal gun, they basically go in and see whether or not that can be treated as a felony. And if you are convicted of a felony, obviously the time that you will have to serve in jail is a longer time. And then there is a publicity campaign that goes along with that, where they will basically let folks know that if you get caught with an illegal gun, you're going to serve 5, 10 years in jail, not the general 2 years or 3 years or whatever this state's law is.
Right.
Now, I understand a lot of people don't agree with that. There's the argument that, it's targeted towards African Americans and it's a racist law and all of that. But what do we do? How do we get down to dealing with this issue? And as I said, particularly in New York State, the governor should take the lead and tell us what he's thinking.
Yeah. Well, Tamika, thank you so very much for calling in and sharing with us. Like I said, Tamika and N.A.N work on this issue 24/7 across the country, not just here in New York, but, it's hard to pin Tamika down sometimes. Sometimes.
How you always get me when you call me.
She is all over the country. N.A.N has chapters all over the country working on this issue, plus many others. And like I said, she leads the national organization. And so shout out to, my young sister and my good girlfriend, working hard for our communities. And check out, make sure to follow her on Twitter. I'll retweet her Twitter handle, follow National Action Network, and get involved with some of these organizations. If you have the time, sometimes people are looking for things to do, looking for places to contribute their time or resources, and they have a roundup of these groups that are really doing good work to address this issue. So, Tamika, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, again, for having me on to discuss this issue, because this is a part of your contribution. We couldn't be effective if we didn't have people to help us get out our message. So thank you.
No problem. And have a good day.
Okay, thank you.